Ladies and gentlemen, there is nothing more painful than giving your heart to someone and being met with silence. To be ignored cuts deeper than words because it makes you question your worth, your beauty, your very place in someone's life. But here is the truth. When a man ignores you, it is not proof of your weakness, it is proof of his fear. He thinks silence will break you, but it can be the very thing that makes you unstoppable. Stay with me because in the next few moments you will discover how to turn his silence into your greatest power and how to destroy his ego without ever saying a word. Have you ever felt the sting of being ignored by someone you care about, as if your presence suddenly became invisible? That silence cuts deeper than words, leaving you questioning your worth, doubting yourself, and replaying every moment in your mind trying to figure out what went wrong. It feels like rejection, abandonment, and betrayal all rolled into one. And the cruel part is, he knows exactly what he's doing. Ignoring you is not an accident, it's a choice. It's a way to hold power without saying a single word, a way to make you chase him, wonder about him, and revolve around his absence. But here's the truth. The moment you begin to see through this game, the moment you refuse to let his silence define you, the entire balance of power shifts. Silence is one of the most manipulative tools in human behavior. When a man ignores you, it's not always because he's too busy or too lost in his world. Often it's because he wants to test how much control he has over you. He knows attention is addictive. He knows the human heart craves connection. And when he withholds it, he's not just creating space. He's creating a trap. That trap is meant to weaken you, to make you question your value, to push you into proving yourself. But here's what he never expects. You don't have to lay that game. You don't have to beg for attention that should be given freely. You don't have to collapse under the weight of silence. Think about it. When someone ignores you, what happens inside? You become restless, distracted, and consumed by what they're not giving. Your mind spins in circles, your emotions feel unstable, and suddenly you're investing energy into chasing answers that don't exist. That's the secret power of being ignored. It forces you into self-doubt. But what if, instead of shrinking in that moment, you used it to rise? What if his silence wasn't a cage, but a spark that reminded you of your true power, your true value, and your ability to walk through life without needing validation from anyone? Here's the emotional truth you need to hold on to. Being ignored does not mean you are unworthy. It does not mean you are less. It only reveals something about him, his insecurity, his need for control, and his inability to meet you at the level you deserve. The reward for seeing this clearly is freedom. Freedom from overthinking, from chasing, from lowering yourself just to be noticed. When you understand that his silence is not about your lack, but about his fear, you gain the upper hand. And when you rise with calmness and confidence, you begin to destroy the very ego that tried to shrink you. Stay with this, because what you're about to discover is how to turn silence into strength, how to flip the game so completely that the one who ignored you is left questioning himself. That shift begins now. When a man ignores you, it is not just silence, it is a reflection of how his ego operates. His ego feeds on attention, on the reassurance that he matters more to you than you matter to yourself. This is why he can pull away so easily, because deep inside he believes you will follow, you will chase, and you will validate him even when he offers you nothing in return. The male ego is fragile, and yet it hides behind a mask of indifference. He may act as though your presence or absence doesn't affect him, but that is an illusion. The truth is, the moment you stop giving him the reaction he expects, cracks begin to form in that mask. What feels like power to him is nothing more than a shield against vulnerability, and shields only work when you keep striking against them. Psychology shows us that people crave what they cannot fully possess. A man who ignores you may seem strong, but he is simply protecting himself from needing you too much. His silence is his attempt to create scarcity, to make you believe that his attention is rare, therefore more valuable. But the reality is that attention gained through games is never genuine. It is manipulation. And once you understand this, you stop seeing his silence as rejection and start seeing it as weakness. Because true strength does not need to play games. True strength communicates, it connects, it values. Anything less is a performance designed to keep you off balance. What destroys his ego most is not anger, not confrontation, but composure. When you refuse to run after him, when you no longer hand over your energy in the form of desperate texts or endless questions, you flip the dynamic completely. Suddenly, his silence no longer holds power. He begins to realize that you are not trapped in the cycle he hoped you would be. He begins to feel the emptiness of his own game. A man may act like he doesn't notice when you pull back, but deep down he does. Silence creates a void, and nature hates a void. When you stop filling it with effort, he is forced to face himself. Understand this. His ego thrives when you are unsettled, when your emotions prove he can control your state of mind. But when your peace remains untouched, when your joy continues regardless of his presence, it unsettles him in ways he cannot explain. He expected your world to orbit around him, and instead he finds himself drifting outside of yours. That realization eats away at the very foundation of his pride. He ignored you to feel powerful, but your lack of reaction makes him powerless. The greatest shift happens when you stop fearing his silence and start using it as evidence of who he truly is. That is where your strength lies, in no longer needing what was never real to begin with. Power is lost the moment you react to his silence with desperation. Every message sent in panic, every question asked in fear, every attempt to pull him back into your world only feeds the belief that he has control. But when you stop reacting, when you allow the silence to exist without chasing after it, you instantly begin to reclaim your ground. The shift from reaction to power is not about playing a cold game. It is about refusing to hand over your energy where it is not respected. It is about standing tall in your worth and letting his behavior reveal more about him than it ever does about you. People respect what they cannot manipulate. A man who sees that you will not crumble in the face of his distance begins to realize that his tactics are useless. This recognition unsettles him because his ego survives on the idea that he can affect your emotions at will. The more he sees that your life continues, your energy flows, and your spirit thrives without his validation, the more he feels the weakness of his position. It is not anger that destroys his pride. It is your calm indifference. It is the grace of a woman who knows she does not need to fight for a place she already deserves. When you choose power over reaction, you move into a state of alignment with your true self. Instead of spiraling into confusion or chasing closure, you stand in the certainty of your value. That certainty radiates in every word you speak and every action you take. He may try to provoke you with distance, but the lack of response tells him louder than words that you cannot be controlled. This is where transformation begins, not when you change him, but when you change how you show up. Ego thrives on a tug of war. As long as you keep pulling, he feels important. But once you drop the rope, there is nothing for him to grasp. The silence you return is not empty. It is filled with strength. It is a declaration that your peace cannot be stolen, that your happiness is not dependent on crumbs of attention. And this, more than any confrontation, dismantles his confidence in the power he thought he held over you. Every time you resist the urge to react, you are teaching yourself that you are stronger than the game. Every moment you choose composure over chaos, you prove that you are no longer a participant in a performance designed to keep you small. This is how his ego begins to crumble, not because you fought harder, but because you stopped fighting at all. You rose above the game, and in doing so, you reclaimed the only power that ever mattered, your own. The most effective way to dismantle his ego is through strategic indifference. This does not mean coldness or bitterness. It means redirecting your attention so completely that his absence loses its power over you. Every time you choose not to reach for your phone, every time you pour your energy into your own growth instead of chasing his attention, you create a ripple effect that he cannot ignore. Indifference is louder than anger, more unsettling than confrontation, and more destructive to his pride than any outburst. It shows him that you are not waiting, not hoping, not trapped in the cycle he wanted you in. The human mind fears being forgotten more than it fears rejection. When you stop reacting to his silence, you trigger this exact fear. He may pretend that your detachment always not affect him, but the truth is it eats away at him. He expected resistance. He expected you to fight for his presence, and when you don't, he begins to feel irrelevant. This is the one thing his ego cannot handle, losing significance in the eyes of someone who once cared deeply. He wanted you unsettled, but instead, it is him who becomes restless. Every action you take toward your own life, your goals, your passions, chips away at the control he thought he had. When you laugh without him, when you shine without his presence, when you continue to grow and thrive, his silence becomes meaningless. He starts to question whether ignoring you was ever a wise move. Your indifference forces him to face the possibility that you may not need him at all, and that thought dismantles the very foundation of his pride. Strategic indifference is not about pretending, it is about choosing peace over chaos, self-respect over begging, growth over stagnation. You are not playing a game, you are setting a standard that says you will not invest in anyone who withholds love, attention, or respect as a weapon. That standard raises your value, not in his eyes alone, but in your own. And once you see your worth clearly, no silence can shake it again. He wanted to control your emotions, but your indifference makes him powerless. He wanted you to question yourself, but your detachment makes him question himself instead. He wanted to leave you unsettled, but now he is the one left searching for answers. This is how you destroy the ego of a man who ignores you, not by fighting louder, but by refusing to fight at all. You show him through your calm strength that he does not decide your value. You do. Indifference becomes unstoppable when it is paired with the choice to reclaim your own power. This is not about proving a point to him, it is about proving something to yourself. The moment you stop revolving around the absence of his attention, you begin to rebuild the presence of your own. You start to invest in the parts of you that may have been neglected while you were waiting, hoping, and overthinking. Each decision to focus on your growth, your happiness, your confidence is a silent but powerful strike against his ego, because nothing unsettles a man more than realizing you are thriving without him. Confidence is magnetic, but it cannot be faked. It is born when you stop measuring your worth through someone else's actions and begin measuring it through your own choices. When you hold your head high, when you carry yourself with dignity, when you radiate self-respect, you send a message that pierces deeper than words ever could. You are telling him and yourself that you are not defined by his silence, that you were whole before him and you remain whole without him. This shift does not just destroy his ego, it awakens your own inner strength in ways you may have forgotten existed. The power of reclaiming yourself lies in its permanence. Games may work for a moment, but true self-value lasts a lifetime. When you invest in self-care, when you dedicate time to building your mind, body, and spirit, you create a glow that cannot be dimmed. He may have thought ignoring you would make you desperate, but instead it made you unstoppable. And that reality forces him to face a truth his ego never wanted to confront. You were never dependent on him. He was dependent on your attention. Without it, he becomes invisible. With it withdrawn, his pride collapses. Every step you take in the direction of your own power is a step away from his control. Every moment you choose self-love over self-doubt is a moment his silence loses its grip on you. The beauty of this transformation is that it does not just affect how he sees you, it changes how you see yourself. You begin to rise into the kind of presence that cannot be ignored, not because you demand attention, but because you radiate strength, clarity, and purpose. That kind of presence destroys ego effortlessly because it cannot be shaken, it cannot be manipulated, and it cannot be controlled. When you embody this level of confidence, the balance shifts forever. He wanted you small, but now you are unshakable. He wanted you uncertain, but now you are radiant. And as his ego struggles to comprehend this shift, you stand taller, stronger, and freer than ever before. The moment you withdraw your energy, something shifts inside him that he cannot control. At first, he may pretend not to notice. He may act as though your silence is nothing compared to his. But deep down, the very thing he tried to use against you begins to backfire. His ego expected you to break, but instead it is his that begins to crack. He grows restless, unsettled, and even confused because the pattern he relied on no longer exists. You were supposed to chase. You were supposed to prove yourself. You were supposed to keep feeding the attention that kept his pride alive. Now, without it, he faces an emptiness he never prepared for. Silence has a way of echoing louder than words. When he ignored you, it was meant to weaken your confidence. When you return that silence with strength, it weakens his. The psychology is simple. People who play games rely on predictable reactions. The moment you step out of that pattern, you take away their control. And when you take away their control, they are forced to face the reality they wanted to avoid, that they are not as powerful as they thought. That realization does not just bruise the ego, it shatters it. What makes this transformation even more powerful is the way it affects you. Instead of living in anxiety, waiting for him to reappear, you begin to find peace in your independence. That peace unsettles him more than any confrontation ever could. He wanted you less, but now he is the one unable to settle. He wanted you uncertain, but now it is his mind that spins with questions. He wonders why you are not chasing, why you are not begging, why you are not reacting the way he expected. The more he wonders, the more his ego erodes. This reversal is not about revenge. It is about liberation. It is about freeing yourself from the invisible chains that silence tried to put around your spirit. When you stop reacting, you stop giving away your power. And when you stop giving away your power, his ego collapses under the weight of its own emptiness. Because the truth is, he never held control over you. He only held control over the parts of you that believed his silence defined your worth. Once you let that belief die, so does his ability to manipulate your emotions. The strength you show in silence is permanent. It is not a temporary tactic. It is a declaration that you will no longer be swayed by the absence of someone who never valued your presence. This is the moment where his pride shatters and your confidence rises. And when that shift takes place, he no longer holds the power, because you have taken it back, completely and forever. The final blow to his ego is not loud, it is not dramatic, it is not even visible on the surface. It is the quiet strength of a woman who refuses to be reduced by silence. It is the steady power of walking away with dignity, of living with a presence so strong that no game can shake it. He wanted to make you doubt yourself, but instead, you discovered a deeper version of yourself that no one can touch. That is what destroys his pride completely. Not that you fought him, but that you rose beyond him. Living untouchable is not about being cold or closed off. It is about building a foundation of self-worth so unshakable that no man's behavior can define your identity. When you hold yourself with this kind of certainty, you radiate a strength that demands respect, not through force, not through anger, but through the undeniable truth that you know who you are. That certainty is more powerful than any attention he could ever give or withhold. It makes you magnetic, not because you seek approval, but because you are overflowing with your own value. When a man ignores you, he expects you to collapse. But when you thrive instead, it destroys the very illusion he tried to create. His silence no longer wounds you, it exposes him. It reveals that he was never the source of your power, only a temporary distraction from it. That realization forces him to confront the weakness he tried to hide behind distance. He thought he was untouchable, but it is you who becomes untouchable. He thought he could control the story, but it is you who rewrites it with your actions. The most powerful revenge is not found in words, but in the life you build without needing him. Every step you take toward growth, every choice you make from a place of self-respect sends a message louder than any confrontation ever could. That message is simple. You are the prize. You are the standard. You are the one who decides what love looks like in your life. And the moment you embrace that truth fully, he loses the one thing his ego craved most: control. What once felt like pain transforms into freedom. What once felt like rejection transforms into clarity. His silence no longer holds meaning because your presence has become louder than any absence. That is the ultimate destruction of his ego. Not that you hurt him, but that you no longer need him. The man who thought you would break under his distance now watches you rise beyond his reach. And as you step into this untouchable version of yourself, you make it clear that the power has always been yours. The moment you stop chasing him is the moment he will never stop chasing you. Strength is not woven in how loudly you fight for someone's attention, but in how gracefully you withdraw from what no longer serves your soul. The man who once believed his silence could control you is forced to confront the truth when he sees you glowing in your own light. That glow is not for him, and that is what unsettles him the most. It is the reflection of a woman who has chosen to rise, who has chosen to love herself more than she could ever crave the scraps of attention he offered. That choice is what strips his ego bare, because nothing is more destructive to pride than realizing the one who was supposed to beg has instead become untouchable. Every time you refuse to lower yourself to meet his games, you are raising the bar for what love and respect must look like in your life. That standard is powerful because it does not bend for anyone. It tells the world that your worth is not negotiable. It tells him that your heart is not a place where immaturity and manipulation can thrive. It tells yourself that no silence, no distance, no absence has the power to shrink who you are. That inner declaration becomes the armor you carry into every relationship, and once you wear it, you will never again fall victim to the same tactics. The beauty of destroying his ego is that it does not come from cruelty. It comes from clarity. You are not seeking to harm, but to honor yourself. You are not playing a game, but stepping into truth. And truth always wins, because truth cannot be shaken. His ego may try to resist it, but the longer he sees your strength, the more he realizes that he has lost what he thought he controlled. And in that realization, he begins to feel the sting of regret. What happens inside him is simple yet powerful. He feels the emptiness of his silence when it no longer draws you in. He feels the weight of his distance when it no longer unsettles you. He feels the collapse of his pride when your joy no longer revolves around his presence. These are the cracks in the armor he once wore so confidently, and each one deepens the more you stand in your own light. You do not need to raise your voice. You do not need to explain yourself. Your life, your strength, and your peace speak louder than words ever could. This is the highest form of power, quiet, unshakable, undeniable. It is the power of a woman who knows that her worth cannot be defined by anyone's silence. And when you embody that truth fully, his ego is no match for your strength. You rise above him, beyond him, and into a version of yourself that no man can ever ignore again.